Chapter 4-2, trigonometry. Unit circle constructed by the use of right triangles, only used to find the 6 trig functions known as the following: sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Now, sine, cosine, tangent, beautiful trig functions. SOHCAHTOA, we know about all that, yes? SOHCAHTOA, yes? We're good with that? Beautiful thing about trig, cosecant, secant, cotangent are reciprocals of sine, cosine, and cotangent. Okay? You know sine? The reciprocal of sine would be 1 over sine, which would be cosecant. Okay? So if I have sine, that's opposite over hypotenuse, that means I have cosecant, which is 1 over sine, which is hypotenuse over the opposite. Correct? If I have cosine, that is adjacent over hypotenuse. Secant is going to be the reciprocal of that, so it's 1 over cosine, which is going to be hypotenuse over adjacent. If I have tangent, that's opposite over hypotenuse, or opposite over adjacent, which means cotangent is going to be adjacent over opposite. I almost said it again. Okay? You cannot forget this page. This page right here is very crucial. Okay? Whenever I say sine, you should say opposite over hypotenuse. Which means you automatically know cosecant. You understand that? Now, the next thing you need to understand is whenever I'm talking sine, your brain should immediately say not only is it opposite over hypotenuse, but it is also the y-coordinate when given it point form. So if I'm giving a point on an angle on the terminal side, okay, can you see the angle in your head? I want you to picture the angle. Okay, put your arms at 12 and 3. Okay? Yeah, 12 and 3, sorry. Okay, if we're at 12 and 3, your terminal side is going to be your right arm, or the one sticking straight up in the air. Okay? As you move that around, that's going to be your terminal side. So you have to envision getting a point on that arm. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Okay? So if I give you a point on your terminal side, the y-coordinate of that point represents your sine value. The x value represents your cosine value. Now I want you to understand something. The Greek alphabet is always used to represent an angle. Theta, alpha, beta, gamma. Okay? Theta, alpha, beta, gamma. Okay? Do we all understand that? Those are Greek letters. Okay? They just represent an angle. Any questions over that? Most important thing, if I say sine, what are the 2 things you need to remember right now? Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's the triangle form. In point form?
Y.
It's y. We understand that. Cosine. Adjacent over hypotenuse. And in point form?
X.
X. Okay. Now, this one right here, if I give you t, again, t just represents what? Yes. T just represents an angle. So the cosine of t is going to be x. The sine of t is going to be y. You know that. This is whenever you're given a point. So when you're given the point xy, the cosine of t is x. The sine of t is y. Huh? What? That means tangent is going to be your sine over your cosine. That's what tangent is. It's sine over cosine. Now, if you want to look at it from the triangle perspective, why is that sine over cosine? Well, sine of x over cosine of x. Sine is going to be opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. We see we have a fraction over fraction. So that's opposite over hypotenuse divided by adjacent over hypotenuse. When you divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. Hypotenuse cancels out, and you're going to get opposite over adjacent. So what you need to understand is that tangent is, in fact, sine over cosine. So we have several definitions for tangent now, don't we? Right? Do we understand that? We have another definition for tangent. Tangent is sine over cosine, which is y over x. X cannot be 0. If x is 0, what's the outcome going to be? If x is 0, what's the outcome going to be? Undefined. It'll be undefined. Now, if I know cosine, then what do I immediately know? Secant. So if cosine's x, the secant is going to be 1 over cosine, which is going to be 1 over x. If I know sine, I automatically know cosecant, which is going to be 1 over sine, which is going to be 1 over y. If I know tangent, I automatically know cotangent. So if that's going to be sine over cosine, then that's going to be cosine over sine, which is going to be x over y. Do we understand that, yes or no? You guys already have the bottom of this. I've only replaced the angle with alpha, okay? You already know all this bottom right down here. You know all of this below here. You don't need to write it down again. We ready?
Some deeper.
Oh, couldn't go down far enough. Oh, this is gonna hurt.
I've never heard someone complain so much.
Unit circle, we already talked about unit circle. Opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent.
We gotta write that.
No, I don't expect you to write it down. You should know it already, correct? If I give you this triangle and here's alpha, opposite is directly across from it. Adjacent is directly beside it. Hypotenuse is across from the 90-degree angle. Okay? We talked about this on Friday, the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. The unit circle again. And we talked about the 30, 60, 90 triangle here, where we're going to have at 60 is going to be the 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. At 30 it's going to be the square root of 3 over 2, comma 1/2. And when I'm talking about in your brain, I want you to go quadrant 1, 90, 1, 2, 3. It's just like the hands on the clock. 90, 1, 2, 3. That's the x coordinates. Okay? Now, tonight's homework. I know, but you guys are going to be ahead of everybody else, and that way I can answer more questions in class. You don't have to do it, but the more, if you have time, I'm gonna help you guys out. Okay, tonight's homework is written A 1 through 28 all. Again, since you guys are ahead, you guys took the quiz, I'm able to teach half the material for you now. Tomorrow in class, you'll be able to get a lot of it done. Okay? For those of you who want to get started on it tonight so that you understand it, would be probably very wise. All it's asking for is giving you points and it's saying, all right, now give me the 6 trig functions. So it's giving you a point that lands on the terminal side. Now, can you tell me what quadrant the point negative 8 over 17, 15 over 17 lies? It lies in quadrant 2. Now, why is that important if it lies in quadrant 2? That means I'm going to have an angle that looks like this, right? Because there's my point, yes? Now, what this tells us is that if we're in quadrant 2, my cosine in quadrant 2 of this angle T is going to be what? Is it going to be positive or negative? Well, all the points in quadrant 2 are what? Negative, positive. So what's the cosine going to be in that quadrant? What's the cosine represent? Whenever I say cosine, your brain automatically should go to which letter? X. So your cosine is going to be negative. What's your sine going to be? My sine is going to be positive. So what does that leave my tangent outcome to be? Well, what's tangent? Sine over cosine, right? So if tangent sine divided by cosine, that means what I have going on here is a positive divided by a negative, which gives me a negative outcome. Do we understand that? Yes or no?
You know that how you work on.
In the directions in the textbook. Okay.
To determine the exact value of the 6 trig number,
They give you the circle, and that circle like this. Okay? That point is right on that circle.
So you're just saying if you did get the decimal inspection.
It's saying any point on that circle, whatever quadrant it lies in. In this specific case, it lies in quadrant 2. This represents x, this represents y, which means this represents your cosine and this represents your sine. That's what that's saying. Anytime I give you a point and I make a circle, I'm able to find the sine, cosine, and tangent, which means if I can find the sine, cosine, and tangent, I can also find cosecant, secant, and cotangent, right?
So how do you do the problem?
So all it's asking for are the 6 trig functions. So if I'm asking for the 6 trig functions, what's my first one? The sine. Well, what's sine? It's my y-coordinate. That's going to be 15 over 17. What's cosine? C is just going to be the angle. I'm sorry, they use theta. I can switch to theta. It doesn't matter. It just represents a placeholder. So what's going to be the cosine of theta? Negative 8 over 17. Well, folks, if I know the sine, what else do I know? I know the cosecant. The cosecant of theta is going to be the reciprocal of this. What's the reciprocal of 15 over 17? 17 over 15. If I know the cosine, then what else do I know? The secant. So what is the secant going to be now? What's the reciprocal of negative 8 over 17? Negative 17 over 8. Do we see that? Okay, so now I have 4 of my 6 trig. Now I need to find my tangent of theta. Well, what's tangent of theta? Tangent's going to be
8 over 17.
your sine over your cosine, which is going to be y over x, which is going to be 15 over 17 divided by negative 8 over 17. Well, when you divide by a fraction, what are you actually doing? Multiplying by its reciprocal, so that's going to be 15 over 17 times 17 over negative 8. Those 17s cancel out, and I have that as my tangent. So if I have 15 over negative 8 as my tangent, what's going to be my cotangent? Negative 8 over 15. Now, do I have all 6 trig functions? Yes. And how did I get all 6 trig functions? Because they gave me an ordered pair x, y. What's x? What's x? Cosine. What's y?
Sine.
Sine. So the next set of instructions say, on number 5, it says, find the point x, y on the unit circle that corresponds to the real number t. Well, they're telling you that t is equal to pi over 4. Well, what quadrant is pi over 4 in?
1.
It's in the first quadrant. And if that's in the first quadrant, everything in quad 1 is plus plus. And it has a denominator of 4. And all angles that have a denominator of 4 are actually what degree angle? 45. And what point corresponds to a 45-degree angle? Square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. All it's asking for is for you to give them the point. You're done. It doesn't ask for anything else. Does that make sense?
Wait, that's the answer right there.
That's your answer right there.
Do we need either?
You can, but I really want your brain to be used, not the unit circle.
Well, we can go around there.
Number 14, the directions say evaluate if possible the sine, cosine, and tangent. It's asking for 3, not 6, right? So if they give you pi over 3, what does that correspond to? That corresponds to a 60-degree angle, which means I'm going to be going down the unit circle 90 degrees, so that's going to be 1/2 the square root of 3 over 2. That's your point. Can I find sine, cosine, and tangent now? Yeah. We'll finish this tomorrow in class. Those of you who want to make sure you understand it, so you can answer questions tomorrow, bring them with you. Have a good day.
So you started ringing at 11:35 now. I'm almost 2 hours late.
I know.